At the White House this week, President Donald Trump addressed a wide range of pressing issues, from the future of TikTok to growing tensions in the Middle East and the persistent challenge of Venezuela's narcotics trade. In his signature style, the president mixed claims of bold achievements with stern warnings to America's adversaries, shaping the conversation in ways that reflect his often blunt approach to governance. The first question reporters pressed him on was one that has dominated headlines for months. Would his administration delay the long-anticipated ban on TikTok? The president wasted no time in making his position clear. Donald Trump said, "Well, we have a deal on TikTok. I've reached a deal with China. I'm going to speak to President Xi on Friday to confirm everything up. We made a very good trade deal, and I hope good for both countries, but a very different deal than they've made in the past." This statement underscored two of Trump's favorite themes: his willingness to strike tough bargains with China and his insistence that his deals were better than those of past administrations. He framed the TikTok arrangement not merely as a business transaction, but as a geopolitical victory, one that he suggested reset the terms of engagement between Washington and Beijing. The question of TikTok's future has been one of the more unusual intersections of technology, national security, and politics. The app, beloved by millions of young Americans, has been caught in the crossfire of US-China tensions. For Trump, this was an opportunity to present himself as the leader who both protects national security and responds to cultural demand. Pressed on which companies were involved in the purchase of TikTok's American operations, Trump was careful not to disclose too much. Donald Trump said, "We'll be announcing that we have a group of very big companies that want to buy it. And you know, the kids wanted it so badly. I had parents calling me up. They don't want it for themselves. They want it for their kids. They say if I don't get it done, they're in big trouble with their kids." And I think it's great. I hate to see value like that thrown out the window. The comment highlighted the unusual political dimension of the debate. Rarely do parents call the White House over a smartphone app. Yet Trump recounted these calls as evidence of how deeply TikTok had embedded itself in American family life. In framing the deal as something that would make parents and children alike happy, he positioned himself not just as a commander-in-chief, but as a cultural broker ensuring the survival of a platform central to youth identity. The president added that the deal involved sums in the range of tens of billions of dollars, suggesting the enormous financial stakes at play. And from his perspective, this was proof that he had leveraged TikTok's popularity into a transaction favorable to US interests. But almost in the same breath, Trump pivoted from digital negotiations to global conflict. He referenced recent reports that Hamas, the militant group at the center of clashes with Israel, was considering the use of hostages as human shields. The president's response was uncompromising. Donald Trump said, "You're talking about tens of billions of dollars. I hear Hamas is trying to use the old human shield deal. And if they do that, they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to be in big trouble." They put it out 2 days ago that they're going to use the hostages as human shields. That's something that hasn't done for a long time. If they put the hostages in front of them, Hamas as protection, as what they call them bodyguards, Hamas is going to have hell to pay. The intensity of his words was unmistakable. By repeating the phrase "big trouble" and invoking the warning of hell to pay, Trump conveyed a seriousness intended to echo beyond Washington. His rhetoric was designed as both deterrent and reassurance, deterring Hamas from escalating further, while reassuring Israel and its allies of US support. The tactic of human shields has long been one of the most sensitive and controversial in modern conflict. For Trump to raise the issue in such direct language was a deliberate choice, signaling that the United States would view such a move not only as immoral, but as grounds for harsh retaliation. The president's statement also served another purpose: to portray him as watchful and engaged with developments abroad, ready to comment quickly on fast-moving crises. In doing so, he placed himself at the center of one of the Middle East's most volatile situations. From the Middle East, the discussion turned sharply to Latin America. Reporters asked Trump about Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, who had accused the United States of preparing to invade his country following reports of American strikes on drug-running boats. Trump's response was characteristically blunt. Donald Trump said, "Well, I would say this right away. Stop sending trend into the United States. Stop sending drugs into the United States. We knocked off actually 3 boats, not 2, but you saw 2. And the problem is there are very few boats out on the water. There are not a lot of boats out on the water. I can't imagine why. Not even fishing boats. There's nobody. Nobody wants to go take a fish. So it's one of those things. But I would say to him very strongly, stop sending people from your prisons into our country. They're sending their prisoners. They've done that already. Here, the president tied Maduro's government to 2 of his administration's recurring themes, drug trafficking and immigration. He accused Venezuela not only of flooding the United States with narcotics, but also of deliberately sending prisoners across the border. These charges, though strongly denied by Caracas, reflected Trump's broader narrative of America under siege from foreign criminal elements. He went on to highlight what he portrayed as unprecedented success in securing the southern border. Donald Trump said, "So the numbers just came out. Another month with 0 people getting into our country. And these are Figure John with people like you that would like me to do badly. Nobody has ever done on the border like I've." Although his phrasing drifted mid-sentence, the core message was clear. Trump was claiming victory in his long fight against illegal immigration. He emphasized the statistics as proof that his hardline policies were working, framing himself as the only president able to deliver what he described as 0 people crossing into the United States. Taken together, these exchanges revealed the breadth of Trump's political theater. In less than an hour, he cast himself as a tech negotiator, striking billion-dollar deals, a global watchdog warning Hamas against atrocities, and a hardline enforcer battling narcotics and immigration threats from Venezuela. Supporters will see in these remarks a portrait of decisive leadership. A president who talks tough, takes action, and doesn't hesitate to call out adversaries by name. His defenders argue that such directness is refreshing in a world of careful diplomatic language. Critics, however, point out the lack of detail behind his claims. On TikTok, he withheld the names of companies supposedly lined up to buy into the platform. On Hamas, he threatened dire consequences without specifying what those consequences might be. And on Venezuela, his depiction of prison transfers and narcotics smuggling painted a picture many analysts consider exaggerated. Still, the theatrical power of Trump's language is undeniable. The quotes that emerged from this briefing: "We have a deal on TikTok. Hamas is going to have hell to pay. Stop sending drugs into the United States," are tailor-made to dominate headlines and fuel political debate. The president's comments show a governing style built less on policy detail and more on rhetorical force. For Trump, the act of saying something loudly and clearly in front of cameras is itself a form of action. In this briefing, that approach was on full display. Donald Trump said, "Well, we have a deal on TikTok." Donald Trump said if they put the hostages in front of them, Hamas as protection, Hamas is going to have hell to pay. Donald Trump said, "Stop sending drugs into the United States." These are not just statements. They are, in Trump's view, instruments of power. Whether they lead to lasting outcomes will depend on what comes next, whether the TikTok deal is finalized, whether Hamas escalates its tactics, and whether US-Venezuela tensions spiral further. For now, the president has once again ensured that his voice, his warnings, and his claims remain at the center of the global conversation.